I've never seen a diamond in the flesh. I cut my teeth on wedding rings.
Dude, that's pretty cool.
Man, that is a sad clown.
Dude, that's pretty good.
This is The Gloom, bringing you weekly interviews with F3 Omaha packs, exploring their F3 experiences and finding those sticky elements that create the glue in the gloom.
You look so sharp right now. You're probably the best guest that we've had on the podcast so far.
Listen, Tony, this is what a lawyer looks like. I don't know if you've seen one.
Oh, I wouldn't know. No, I think Notos and Safe Ride kind of showed me up too. Yeah, I don't even know what it looks like to be a real attorney. This morning we've got our boy Stella. If you all do not know, Stella is the former site Q, at Coliseum, and has been a guy that's been around, is expecting his second child in January, I believe.
Third child.
Right there.
Third child. All
right, third child. All right, I'm getting the hang of this. Third child in January, has been around, I think, coming up on 3 years pretty soon. So definitely glad to have you here, Stella. Appreciate it. You know, we like to start these off by asking, how the hell did you get brought out for a workout? Who brought you out, and how'd you get the name Stella?
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me, Pony and Plague. So yeah, I started in April 2019. Prior to that, it was probably late fall. A guy Walk-On, who I don't think posts anymore, was telling me about this men's workout group, and he kept inviting me for beers and working out. They would go to Paulie's on Thursday nights, and deep down inside, I kind of wanted to go, but then I was like, this is kind of weird, and I never did. Then lo and behold, April 2019, Safe Ride got EH'd by, I believe, Brazilian, and Safe Ride was about a week into it, cornered me in the break room and said something like, hey, I don't think you can do this. And so lo and behold, next Saturday morning out at Oracle 2-year anniversary, and that was my first post.
Awesome. Interesting, the number of guys that don't go the first time they get an offer, or the first time somebody reaches out. What do you think changed for you, or was maybe going on in life that promoted that first engagement?
Looking back, I was always kind of a gym rat, if you can't tell. I see the Plague laughing right now. You probably can't hear him. And Pony. I certainly, what kept me coming back was just the male fellowship. I would go to the gym alone most mornings, run on my own, kind of a half-ass workout, not probably too tough, but I went to the same gym, Genesis, Aspen, whatever you call that place. And I talked to, I think, 3 people over the course of 6 or 7 years, and I was in there hundreds of times. And so my first post, just having people come up and say, hey, good to have you, and all that encouragement, and just simply talking to people, that's what kept me coming back.
I remember too, you and I at the time were going to the same church, but didn't even talk to each other there. And then I think we realized through F3, like, hey, we actually go to the same church. And so we were able to connect there.
You're right. You sent me a text.
Yeah. It's like, hey, wait a minute. I think that's you in church. So yeah, it's definitely, it's interesting. The ability to connect through F3 somehow is so different for us than other places in the community. I wonder, and you commented, you are swole and you have been that way since day one of F3. But talk us through, I don't know if you have any favorite memories or things, in different workouts that you might remember, but curious, that first F journey for you, how has that been? I mean, I think you have a a body type that most guys are jealous of because you seem to stay pretty fit. But has that been a journey for you on the fitness side, or what's that first step been like?
You're too kind, Plague. What most people probably don't know is, call it 12 years ago, my sophomore year in college, I was 210. That's 210 pounds. It's probably all the Taco Bell and fast food and just eating processed food. But yeah, my kind of physical.
Was it a Jack 210? Was it a Jack 210 or a fluffy 210?
It was
Just
certainly
for illustrative purposes.
It was a fluffy 210. And it was a 210 the ladies at Creighton University probably weren't very attracted to either. I kind of personally started to accelerate, losing weight, eating a lot cleaner, healthier. Starting F3, certainly some of those first beat downs, doing the boot camp style, certainly gassed at the end of it. I remember Mary, you're just kind of working out, and I'm like, oh my gosh, can I get through these 20 American hammers at the end and all the core? The next thing you know, I remember my first pre-run was actually with, I think, Honey Stinger from our neighborhood to Cornhusker Handicap. And I thought that was the coolest thing I'd ever done in my life. Looking back, and it was like a good 2.2 miles or something.
Yeah, I love that, man. It's interesting because a lot of times we don't know that background, which is, I think, one of the opportunities we have here, just to share people's stories. And you commented on just the fellowship or lack of, right, at the gym, or even in some other areas of the community. But curious, you mentioned the fellowship, but where have you found that fellowship in F3? Has it been the workouts or the coffee, or maybe a little bit of both? Or where have you found the most engagement there?
Absolutely the coffee. Love the beat downs with all the mumble chatter, and that's kind of the first starting point. But honestly, I mean, coffee is what probably kept me coming back too. It's one of those favorite times in my day, actually. You get a nice beat down in, and then you go start drinking caffeine, start talking real fast, and you're home by 7 o'clock. It's just like the best morning ever.
I love that. And I would agree. I mean, just spending some time with the guys, getting an opportunity just to shoot the shit a little bit is a lot of fun. I am interested, our goal here at F3 is to, somewhat promote leadership. And you had the unique position and opportunity to actually take on a leadership role. And just want to talk to you about that. Where were you at that time? What made you think that you were ready to take on that role? And then maybe we can talk about when you're ready to hand it off.
Yeah. So I took over the Coliseum Site Q in, I believe it was August of 2020. And I was approached by Safe Ride, who was the previous Site Q and founder. And everything just kind of fell into piece where I was kind of itching, deep down inside. I knew I wanted to take a leadership role, kind of give back, and just didn't really know how. And things just kind of fell into place where he approached me and it worked out. So definitely a great experience in, being able to lead the Coliseum for a solid year. Strongly encourage anyone on the fence, just do it. Obviously there's a little bit of work involved, but it is, very rewarding, and you get to give back to the packs.
Yeah. I mean, do you feel like you were just at a supremely elevated level in physical fitness and you felt like that's why you were ready? Or I guess, what was it that clicked for you where when Safe Ride approached you, it was an easy yes for you?
I think it was a combination of everything. Just having whatever, I'm not sure how many times I had queued before, whether it was 15 or 20 queues. You kind of do develop that inner confidence of like, hey, I can queue. And then you do it again. And I think we all had that feeling where I mean, the first couple cues I ever had, I had a winky, and I even wrote out the cadence on it, which is totally fine and encourage people to do. But you know, if you look at the back of my winky, it was a cheat sheet just because I was so nervous. Other than you just do it, you do it, you do it. And the next thing you know, you don't even have a winky, or, you know, you just go. You can lead a warm-a-rama just by showing up.
Well, you know, I'm certainly glad you took on that leadership role. I guess I'm looking for some personal advice here. I think there's a joke going around that they don't know who's going to hold the longest leadership role between me and the current Nantan. So as a guy who may be in this position looking for someone to take over, what was it that you were looking for when you were looking to kind of pass the shovel on? And I guess what was it that you saw in Tin Cup that said, hey, this guy's ready and he's going to be the perfect fit for Coliseum?
Yeah, it was a couple different things. So, you know, I think it was just when you go to your own site every single week and you see the same people there, I identified him as one of those guys that was just a very silent leader. And when I was thinking about who might be a good replacement, I go back to the coldest workout, I think, in F3 history. It was, I think, February, whenever that was last year. And Tin Cup was on the queue at the Coliseum. And it was the negative, whatever it was, 20 degrees, didn't flinch, led us the entire beat down. And then I just saw him queue a couple times, and he just had this really, really good kind of hidden leadership about him, just because, you know, there's guys that are really loud all the time, like Ponzi, Pony Express. Then there's guys that just, you know, are there, present, involved, but they might not be the loudest, or, you know, but when you call on them, they just step up. And I just kind of saw something in Tin Cup, and, you know, the consistency, the leadership. When you call him to lead an exercise, he just kind of stepped up, and people listened to him too.
That's really good, and I think that could be what you know, maybe one of the underlying themes here, Pony, is you don't have to look for extravagant leadership qualities, or you know, and it may not be a leader that's the same as you, right? I love that you called out Pony and Ponzi as being really loud. I think they're working on that. But you know, Stella, one of the things you mentioned is being a site Q gave you an opportunity to give back. I wonder if you could elaborate on that a little bit. I don't know that most people fully understand what it means to be a site Q, or what some of those opportunities you have to give back as a site Q that might be different than a kind of normal civilian packs, if you will.
Yeah, to me, giving back, you know, at the end of the day, there's nothing super special, but it's more of just providing a consistent beat down AO, making sure there's a site queue there, everything runs smoothly, just to allow packs to flourish at the site. You know, it's kind of a thing where if your door isn't open for business, people aren't going to come in. And so by just consistently keeping the site active, having good queues, you know, you get that F&G that pops in, and the next thing you know, they're coming back bringing F&Gs.
Yeah. I think, again, it's simple, and that's partly what I think works about the F3 model. I think one of the things too that is an opportunity as a site Q really is you give guys a chance to lead, right? You identify, hey, this guy's been coming for a while, he's never queued, let's get him on the schedule and let's support him, right? And there's opportunity maybe you know, to watch that other guy go through a workout where they have a winky, and then they can progress to where they don't need one anymore. And I love that. I also think you know, there's some opportunity too to teach guys what other things we're doing as an F3 organization. And I wonder, Talk to us a little bit about your experience or exposure to like the Free to Lead, some of the book studies. I know we've done a couple after the Coliseum, and even like the Q source stuff. Have you had a chance to engage in any of those things, or what's been your experience?
Yeah, there was the point in time where we had khakis do a Q school at the Coliseum, in part because half the guys, 3/4 of the guys were new within 6 months. You know, it's just one of those things where you have a lot of growth and at an AO, and there's all these new people that, you know, it just helps to go through the Q school so you understand why we do things, why we call the cadence in a certain way. And then, yeah, absolutely. We didn't have a weekly book discussion or Q school, but a couple times, certainly after the Coliseum, we had some book discussions in the Starbucks parking lot, just to kind of let the, you know, a PAX lead through that discussion.
And I may ask you to peel back the Stella onion for us a little bit here, but when you read Free to Lead, or, you know, as you've gone through that and listened to maybe the stories in that book or heard other guys' stories, where do you identify with? Where do you kind of see your own story in that, or do you see your own story in there?
Yeah, great question. And in all honesty, I haven't read that book in a while. Probably need a refresh on it. But I've read it front to back at least once, and I think I did it a second time actually. I think all the points in there just make so much sense of explaining why we do the things we do. To me, my story, you know, was more of just kind of just a sad clown, you know, nothing too crazy wrong in life, luckily, but not flourishing. You know, you go to work, and I'd be in an office all day. Sometimes you don't talk to anyone. And certainly that thing missing was male fellowship. You know, certainly had other friends from law school, college, still we're on text chains with, but, you know, it lacks a lot of that depth just because, you know, you can call someone a friend, but unless you interact with them, it's just going to die over time. And so to me, the biggest glue of F3 has just been that getting to know people, whether it's at coffee, working out, or the next thing you know, you see the same people all the time, and they start to become your best friends. So that would be kind of what the glue to my F3 story.
I think that's great. You know, I think what I forget sometimes, because I look at my story and other guys, kind of the journey they've been on. And a lot of times you hear like, oh, there was some major event or some major issue or something went wrong. And then the kind of the beginning of the Q source talks about needing to be pulled back up into the boat. Mm-hmm. But that's not everybody's story. And so I think the fact that you mentioned your story doesn't have a big event like that. But still life kind of led you down this path that you found yourself just going through the motions of that life. And, mm-hmm. and I think that's good for guys to hear, because you don't need to have some huge life event in order to have a need for male fellowship or F3 or just what we have to offer in our community. So I appreciate you sharing that. And I think it's also, I know a lot of guys are not comfortable being vulnerable. And I think over time, you kind of learn to let your guard down a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I wonder, for you, do you feel like, have you formed a shield lock, or have you been able to kind of build some of those, the 2 or 3 guys that you're able to tell, kind of some of the things you need accountability for or help with, or do you feel like you found that somewhere in F3?
Absolutely. Certainly some high impact men I interact with, a lot, whether it's random text messages, grabbing a drink after work, or just doing something on the weekend. Even just last night, a huge evergreen tree fell on my car with this storm, and I sent a text out saying, hey, can someone bring a chainsaw? And next thing I know, I have half the West Side neighborhood in my driveway bringing chainsaws over, so I think that just speaks to the depth of, it kind of starts out as these dudes you work out with, and then you go to coffee, you interact, and the next thing you know, they become, good friends at some point.
It's kind of the idea of like a group conscience. It's just like the energy of being around this group of guys that has the ability to just change your mindset, change the way you're approaching things. And you mentioned kind of at the beginning, you're getting ready to have your third kid, and as you read in Free to Lead, right, a lot of the emphasis is on acceleration so we can improve our relationships, starting with our M and our 2.0s. And how do you feel like F3's impacted that for you? Do you feel like you've been able to be a better husband, father, friend, that sort of thing? Or
Absolutely. So one interesting, to open up a little bit here, I was kind of like Pony Express hate when I first joined. I did have a younger child, but all my friends were kind of my same age. Then there were all these guys when I posted at F3 who I was like, do I have stuff in common with them? Just because they all have kids, they're 5, 6, they have kids that are 5 or 6 years old. And prior to F3, I just never thought I had stuff in common, almost, where I had my friends that were, whatever it is, still in the party mode, people don't have kids, just a whole different life cycle and stuff going on. And so F3 in part, just made me realize I have so much in common with these guys. And now most of my best friends have a couple kids. Often their kids are older than my kids. But without F3 and making that connection, I think I would always just slightly judge and be like, I don't have anything in common because they're a husband and father and they've got 2 kids, and I'm, young Stella over here that just had a baby. And, I don't know how to articulate it, but it was just that feeling, which turned out to be completely inaccurate.
I think that's normal, right? I mean, I think you come into this group that I think what's funny is a lot of guys on their first day they think the group has been together forever and that we're all like best friends, and a lot of times that's not the case. We just have worked out once or twice together. But you come into this group and you don't really know, what you do have in common. And if you're on a different level, fitness wise or in other areas of your life, I agree. I mean, I think it's really, really tough. And I think, that would be something I'm curious your thoughts on, because as a site Q, you would see this happen, but just also as a PAX member and as a former FNG, right? We're all former FNGs. What is it, do you think? Like, how do we help other guys to make those connections or see that they do have a lot in common? What are the things we should be doing better or different to do that?
I think just, making that mumble chatter, small talk, try and resist, work out with someone new when you partner up sometimes, make small talk. To me, where I've developed a lot of deeper friendships too has been pre-running. I started pre-running, and then once I started, it turned into like 4 times a week. But I can't not go back, Once you start doing it, just running for 30 minutes, chatting with random people, that's a great part of it too. And then also, make sure the new guy comes to coffee, to the extent often people have stuff going on, you can't. But if you see someone standing there alone, just go up to them and start talking, and just start making that connection. One thing I did not do good as a site Q, and I wish I would have done better, is to text FNGs when they come to the site, just to say, hey, it was nice to have you. So looking back, if anyone is a current site Q or going to be a site Q, I would say try and do that. I didn't do it, and I wish I would have.
Oh my God, I just had a self-revelation that I have never texted an F&G after a workout. Oh man, wow. Well, that's great advice, and I will carry that on until I find a successor. Stella, any remarks, anything that you don't think that we covered that you kind of want to share with people? You know, things we're doing good, things we're not doing good. Not us personally, but F3 Omaha as a whole. And
Or
you
pony
can
personally.
send all critiques to Plague. You can send all critiques about the podcast to Plague after, but just in terms of F3 Omaha.
I think everything's going great right now. It's just wild, the acceleration. One challenge I'm going to try for myself is to expand my circle of where I work out. Due to personal reasons of having to be home sometimes at like 6:30 on the dot, or if I post farther away, I can't go to coffee because of the wife's work schedule. She's going to be on maternity leave, so that's going to give me some, hopefully, more time for coffee and fellowship, knock on wood. But, one thing I want to improve on and would challenge people to do, I kind of go to the same sites every week, mix it up a little bit. But if you have the time, and I get there's different reasons, like I've got personal reasons too, I can't go to Wild Kingdom often, but just to try and go mix those different sites up. But the flip side to that is, I think F3 was kind of built in a way where it makes sense to work out with the people in your neighborhood, the people that are 5 miles from you, just because you develop those relationships by going each week versus, if you alternate all the time, you're probably never going to find that deep connection.
Yeah, and we used to try to do October used to be the Khakis Challenge month, if anybody remembers that. But the difficulty now is we have so many sites you can't actually hit them all in 1 month. So that that's kind of a problem that we've run into. But I wonder too, Stella, if just as guys are maybe listening, and as you're thinking about your experience in F3. What are like some of those key things? You mentioned coffee, Bumble chatter. What are some of the other things? Like, have you been able to take advantage of the third F stuff, or any of the other like first Friday lunches, or what are some of the other things you feel like if a new guy's coming in, we got to make sure they know about this thing that we do?
Absolutely. I try and make as many first Friday lunches as I can. And certainly have been to, probably half of them, but that's always a great time. One thing that's kind of died down were these pop-up workouts tied with happy hours or meetups. Those have been really, really special too. I've done a lot of those. And personal challenges, I probably need to just go plan it. If no one's doing it, go put the details on Slack, do a pop-up. But yeah, to get involved, I would say, just post every day, pre-run once or twice a week, then just do all the other opportunities.
I think hopefully guys are aware but you mentioned Slack, and so that is, I think that's the spot. And I think the other thing you commented is true as well, right? Free to lead. We want guys to be able to lead within the mission of the group, and that really is to plant, grow, and serve small workout groups for the invigoration of male community leadership. So we love seeing that, and I appreciate you taking the opportunity to lead a site, but also just to keep leading, along the way. And I think what I love about you, Stella, in particular, is you're a simple guy, but you're still trying to accelerate. And I think, kind of like we said before, not everything needs to be a big deal necessarily, right? Or like some huge mountain we're trying to overcome, or right? It's just putting small things in place. We're reading this book in our Thursday morning study, and one of the things they talked about was character is built over time, over doing consistently small things of integrity, humility, that sort of stuff over time, and that produces good character. And so I see that in you and appreciate that about you. So appreciate your time today. And with that, Pony, you want to lead us in COT, or I mean Namerama?
Yeah, I can handle that. I am John Whitworth, 30, Pony Express.
Pony Express, nay. Brandon Flaherty, 35, The Plague.
Plague. Jeremy Elliott, 35, Stella. That's what she said.
Yeah. Awesome. Love it, man. Hey, appreciate your time today. Thanks for sharing your story.